new today about this U.S. steel potential purchase that would be inappropriate. The president is the most pro-union president we've had. He absolutely wants to make sure that there's a level, fair playing field for steel workers in this country. That will always be foremost in his mind. That's about as far as I think I go.
Thank you so much. I would have a question on Ukraine. So the EU said today that they will only be able to supply half of the million artillery rounds that they had pledged for Ukraine. And this comes at a time when US assistance has stopped. So how bad is all this for the Ukrainian forces, and do you see an impact on the battlefield already?
Sure as heck ain't good. And this is why we need the supplemental funding. It's critical. And artillery rounds are one of the most expended munitions on the battlefield, continually. It's absolutely critical that we get this funding for Ukraine so that we can get back to leading the world in supporting Ukraine and their ability to defend themselves. So I can't speak for the European Union or other European nations, but I have said in the past that other nations will be looking to us for our leadership. They will be looking to us for decisions and certainty about what support for Ukraine is going to look like going forward. It's absolutely vital to get that funding.
Thank you. And right now, obviously, the U.S. is contemplating retaliatory strikes that could be in Iraq or in or around Iran or other countries. U.S. and British planes have hit targets in Yemen. U.S. forces have come under attack in multiple countries in recent weeks. All of these are part of the same larger conflict. At what point would the administration consider this to be at least a small regional war?
I absolutely don't agree with your description of the same large conflict. There's a conflict going on between Israel and Hamas. Yeah, unmentioned. And we're going to make sure that we continue to get Israel the support that they need to defend themselves against a still viable threat. There were attacks against our troop facilities in Iraq and Syria well before the 7th of October. Certainly the last administration as well. And as for the Houthis, they can claim all they want that this is linked to Gaza. But 2/3 of the ships that they're hitting have no connection to Israel whatsoever. So it's just not true. It's a falsehood. And we're going to continue to do what we have to do to protect that ship from crashing, as we did just today. If we see an opportunity to prevent a missile from getting launched, we'll take it out. We'll do what we have to do.
Subject of Gaza officials with World Health Organization programs and use that all over the family in this decision by another underreported get the problem even worse because of others' unique capabilities in Gaza. Does the White House share these concerns, and what's the administration prepared to do to fill any gap in aid to Gaza caused by decisions to defund?
Why we're working so hard to get more security assistance, which is why it's so important that these discussions that we've been having about extended power actually come to fruition. Because it's not just, it is primarily about getting this hostage to our course, but it also will give you a longer opportunity to increase that aid. So absolutely, no question about it. However, suspended funding temporarily at phase 2 of this investigation, we believe this is the right to stop that movement while they investigate and see how that investigation goes. If they learn, I would move on that it was a suspension, it was not a termination. If they believe that what our options are, and the money that was suspended, if there wasn't a lot left in the allocation, and the money that was suspended was really designed more for their efforts in Georgia.
If the border bill plus Ukraine fails, is there an alternative legislative vehicle to get aid to Ukraine? And what will the House Republicans
first question, no. It's up to, the national security supplemental is what we need. It was thoughtfully, calibrated, thoughtfully arrived at in discussions with our Ukrainian counterparts. We need that money right now. If you were to ask me, we are using additional security systems to replace currently left. We've got to have that money. And on your first question, do I think House Republicans are supporting guns? I'm not, I'm not gonna get up here and repeat anything in Congress. We believe that there is strong bipartisan support, and bipartisan support to support, and the leaders of, from outside, of those oversight committees for national security, intelligence, and foreign affairs, they all support supporting Ukraine. But it is a matter of getting there, and there are active negotiations going on now. I'm not gonna get into, Lynn's lane here, because this is really what you were talking about. There are active negotiations going on, and we're doing that. The only thing that makes Ukraine, that fails is now 18 months. That's what we need is a national security supplemental fund. That is the discussion that's going on right now. I can't put myself 2 or 10 steps ahead of where we are right now and what that looks like. We want to get the money for Ukraine. The supplemental in October. We believe it's right now, and we believe it's absolutely. I don't have any. I'm not sure. Probably don't understand the question as well as I should. Nothing's changed. We don't want to see conflict-wide escalation. And almost everything the president has done since the 7th of October has been designed to prevent that escalation. Of course, I'm mindful of the attacks by the Houthis. We're mindful of illegal attacks in Jordan, which is why he's taken the actions that he's taken, and it's why he's about to take the actions we're going to take.
And on the HK statement yesterday, was it, statement yesterday in Iraq, was it a result of a diplomatic engagement with the Iraqi government, pressure? Were you in contact with the Iraqis on this statement, or did you pressure them, something like that?
No.
Go back to Dover for a moment. If, in the past, when, there has been transfer of remains, it has been done late at night and there's been some photographs, but no actual press coverage of that event. Is this going to be a different situation, given the fact that the president is about to, or has already decided what his response is going to be to the drone strike that took out those 3 Americans?
Not sure if, why would the dignified transfer be different because the president decided to make a response?
Will the president be making any statement at that event?
No, just to level set here, the way these dignified transfers happen, you've talked about some coming in the middle of the night. If they come in, it's not, the arrival time is set by the military. It has nothing to do with who's going to be there to meet them. That's number one. So they come in at whatever hour the U.S. military system has that plane arriving. It's completely independent of any other factor. That's point one. Point two, on the press coverage, that is determined by the families, not by the administration, not by the U.S. military, not by the folks at Dover. The families get to determine media to be there. And in some cases, when you have you've had multiple families involved, some families want it, some families don't. So the media are allowed to witness a transfer too, and they are taken away for the ones that the families don't. It is up to the families, not to us. We have nothing to do with that. And no, the president won't be speaking at Dover. That's not the appropriate venue for anybody to speak. It is a very, very solemn, dignified well, I think he did call it a cemetery, a ceremony. We call it a transfer, but there is a ritual to it, and it's very somber and it's very solemn, and that's not the place for speeches. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm East Palestine. Why the administration thought that things have, I guess, coalesced and it's now time for President Biden to go?
So, the mayor and community leaders invited the president to meet with East Palestine residents and also assess the recovery progress that's been going on for some time now, as you all know. And so the president had always said that he would go, most helpful to the community. And with this invitation, obviously, very recent, and the current status of the recovery, we felt that the time was right. Again, we got an invitation from the mayor and community leaders to come, and very recently, and so we are working with them to figure out the best time to do that in February.
And there isn't a date yet.
There's no date yet, but obviously we're working with community leaders, we're working with the mayor, elected officials to find the exact time and day to go in February.
Where, the mayor has made some comments, reported comments that seem less than inviting to President Biden to come, while praising former President Trump as actually having more impact on helping the situation, getting the ball moving as things have happened. Does the mayor, one, want President Biden to come? And two, why is from what you're saying,
Yeah.
he's inviting him,
Yeah,
but
I'm assuming he wants us to come if he's inviting him.
why is he also at the same time? Have you guys gotten a sense? And does it matter to President Biden that he's at one end, he's sort of, dunking on him while also calling him to come and visit, from what you're
So
saying?
look, the invite came from the mayor and other folks on the ground. So I think that's important, right? The mayor obviously wants the president of the United States to be there. The president has always said he is a president for folks who live in red states, folks who live in blue states. Doesn't matter if you're in rural America, urban, suburban. He is a president for all, and so let's just never forget that. And I also want to take a step back. Look, the mayor is allowed to say whatever he wants to say. So he also invited the president, this current president, to come. Look, this is, if you think about what happened in East Palestine on day one, within hours of the derailment, we were on the ground at the president's direction within hours, and he sent personnel there. This is the president sent personnel there. EPA, DOT, FEMA, HSS have all been on the ground to support the community till this day. They're still on the ground today. And so, look, the president has been very clear. Anytime there is a situation that happens in a community that is devastated by whether it's a derailment or a natural disaster, obviously, the president says this all the time. He is there for that community for as long as it takes, and he's proven that. So he's looking forward to going to East Palestine in February. We're going to find the day that works best for the folks on the ground. He always said that when the time was right, when it was the most helpful for him to be there, he was going to be there.
Very quickly, tomorrow, is there any official business in Michigan for the president, or is this solely a political trip?
It's a political trip.
You talked about the border deal. Are you now pessimistic that a border deal will get done?
No, we're not pessimistic at all. I mean, look, the conversations in the Senate with Republicans and Democrats, it's been going on for about 2 months now. We believe have been going in the right direction. They've been productive. I've said this before. The president says this. He's optimistic, and we appreciate that they have been doing this in good faith. But we're also going to call out House Republicans, and we're going to call out Speaker Johnson. And I think it's important for us to do that because it's like upside down world over there. They've been flip-flopping over there. This is going to be a deal, if it is actually goes into law, that is, yes, going to be tough, but it's also going to be fair. It is a bipartisan agreement. That's how we move policy forward. That's how we move legislation forward on behalf of the American people. So we're always going to be very clear-cut and straightforward on how we see things. And so that's why we're going to call out what we're seeing in the House Republicans. It is not in line. It is not in line with what they have been saying for years about what they wanted to see.
The president has faced a lot of criticism in Michigan from the Arab American community. What is he saying? What's his message to them, those who feel disenchanted by the Gaza operation?
So a couple of things. Obviously, as Armor was asking me, tomorrow he's going to be going to Michigan. It's going to be
a political organized strip that is going to be done by the campaign. So any itinerary or pieces like that that are related to that particular trip, the campaign could answer to that more broadly, obviously. But what I would want to say is that the president has met with Americans with varying opinions about the conflict that we're seeing sadly in Israel and Hamas. Officials at the White House have had numerous conversations and in regular contact with Muslim and Arab members, Americans, leaders in Michigan and across the country. He said he's okay. Get some water. Concerned for him. Look, the president's going to continues to believe that Israel has a right to defend themselves. They have a right to defend themselves as long as they continue. It is done in accordance of humanitarian law. So we will continue to have those conversations with them. At the same time, he is heartbroken by the suffering of innocent Palestinians. That is, who have been caught in the middle of the conflict and between Israel and Hamas, and he continues to press for humanitarian aid. You heard the admiral speak to that when he was getting a couple of questions on that, and when we've had the humanitarian pauses in the past, we've been able to get about 100 hostages home to go back to their family and friends, right? There are families and loved ones who are heartbroken right now, waiting for their loved ones to come home. That is very important, and also to make sure we get that much needed humanitarian aid into Gaza. And so this is what this administration has been doing around the clock, trying to get to another humanitarian pause so that we can get that much needed assistance into Gaza and get those hostages home to their loved ones.
Is the White House open to a separate bill that funds Israel and Ukraine and tabling the current supplemental package as some Senate Republicans are discussing?
What we want, and to answer that question very straightforward, is like we want the national security supplemental to be passed. That's what we want. As you know, we introduced that in October. I've said this very, very often when the president asks for a supplemental bill, it is because it is an emergency request. This is an emergency request that we believe is important for our national security, hence the name of the supplemental, for not just for around the world, for us here, for Americans here in this country. And so we are going to be very focused on getting that done. We appreciate the conversations that's happening on the border security in the Senate, both Republicans and Democrats, but we want to see the national security supplemental bill move forward as it stands, as it is all together.
I understand that's your preference, obviously, but is the White House open to a separate bill that just deals with Ukraine?
That's not the discussion we're having. That's not what we're looking for. That's not what we're moving towards for. That is not the discussions that we're having. That is not what we want to see. We want to see we want to see that national security supplemental move forward. That is what we're working towards.
To clarify, when you just said that's not the discussion that we're having, do you mean that the White House has not been engaged with Senate leaders, Senate Republicans in particular, about that idea, which is being discussed right now?
So what we are focused on, the answer is we're focused on getting the national security supplemental move forward as in the way that the president requested. That's what we want to do. That's how we're moving forward. And that is, we believe, what has been asked in that bill. Different components, different pieces are incredibly important. It is what's needed for our national security, and we need to move forward with it as is.
White House had a discussion with that.
Look, I don't have any discussions to share with you about that. I can tell you what we're moving towards. We're moving towards on making sure that we get that national security supplemental move forward as it is, as the president requested from Congress. That's one of the reasons we're having these really important bipartisan conversation in the Senate to see what we can do with the border security, but we want that national security supplemental to move forward. That's what we want, that request to move forward.
Ms. Green, Boeing CEO said today that the company caused the problems with the 737 MAX and needed to return focus to safety. Obviously, in addition to the administration's role in ensuring air safety, the government is one of Boeing's biggest customers. So are you guys confident that the leadership
look, what we wanna make sure, and what FAA wants to make sure, and it is their top priority, that, we make the safety, obviously, the safety of Americans as they fly across the country, obviously, and beyond, is safe. And that is what we wanna be very, very clear about. I can't speak to, obviously, there's an investigation going on, they're looking into it. I'm gonna let that investigation go forth. I don't wanna get ahead of that, but obviously we're concerned. You know, obviously we're concerned. We wanna put, American safety, we put American safety first. That's what FAA does. But I'm not gonna get into, the leadership of Boeing. I'm not gonna get into, specifics of that. FAA has acted, they've taken action, and we're gonna let that process move forward.
In addition to Max, which made by Boeing is under review. I was just wondering if you had any update on the review there.
So we don't have any updates for you at this time. Justin, what I can say is that the Department of Defense is better to answer those specifics as it relates to those.
A judge in Delaware ruled that the Elon Musk pay package was excessive. Elon then tweeted that companies should incorporate in the president's home state. So I'm wondering if you had any reaction to the ruling, but barring that, thoughts on Delaware's corporate governance and legal system you might want to share.
So I'm going to be really careful not to get into a private company's legal cases. Look, this ruling, and I'll just add a finer point, this ruling doesn't involve this administration at all. It just doesn't. So I really don't have anything more to share from here.
Actually, there's some big protests planned tonight in Dearborn, Michigan, on the eve of the president's visit to Michigan tomorrow. Arab Americans protesting the administration's handling of the war between Israel and Hamas. Does the president have any plans to meet with any Arab American community leaders when he's in Michigan tomorrow?
So, as I stated, this is a political event. The campaign certainly can speak to the different parts of the trip directly. I'll say this, and I kind of said this at the top when I was asked this question. The president has had meetings with Muslim and Arab leaders. Obviously, we don't read out every meeting. So have White House officials here have been in regular contact with Muslim and Arab leaders, folks in those communities. Don't have anything else to share beyond that. And I've laid out that we understand. Like this is a very difficult time for people. We get that. We get that it's a very difficult time for folks. And we always believe in for Americans to be heard and to do that in a peaceful way. And so that is what we're always trying to do on that. I laid out just moments ago how heartbreaking it has been to see innocent Palestinians, have been caught up in the middle of what we're seeing between obviously Israel and Hamas, and so we're going to continue to push for these humanitarian pauses to make sure hostages come home to their loved ones and families and get that all very important needed humanitarian aid into Gaza.
Does the president believe he may alienate Arab Americans with his policy? And is he willing to sustain that kind of difficulty because he believes in his view about Israel's right to defend itself? Is it a war that he's willing to sustain?
Look, when the president thinks about things, it's not about the politics, right? It